attention. And typically we'll ignore it. Or we'll do the other thing, especially if you're a woman, we'll try to suckle it or take care of it. And in that kind of dream, well, what's wrong with that? With a dream of taking care of a child, it's a wonderful thing. But remember, you're the child. And the child wants to become you because the child is the true soul of you. So when you take care of a child in a dream, it's not so good. But it's so much of this, as Rodger pointed out, runs counter to our intuitive belief in truth. Well, this is good, this is good, this is not so good. But in dreams, it throws it completely upside down because the intention of the dream is to transcend our identities. And by understanding that, suddenly the dream makes a lot more sense that why is it our child is acting out in a dream? Well, maybe he wants our attention. Maybe it's not just needs us to be more intolerant or more in control, which is what we adults do so well. We control everything. And the reason why the soul needs to emerge is because it's the only part of us, A, that feels, but it's the only part of us that remembers what its purpose was, and the only part of us that can be obedient to God. And I love being here. You know, you're all people that care about God. There are many of you religious. We all have that in common, and the dream is about God. And a lot of people in the dream world, you can't use the word God, and we use other words, but because people are really, they don't want God in the psychological realm. So it's great to be here where God is allowed. And dreams are about the divine trying to get our attention and reconnect to us, but it can't reconnect to this. It's got to reconnect to the soul. And finding that part, it was a fun thing to think a few years ago, oh, well, I can be the child, my child wants this and that, but it's not like that at all. The child will kill you.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you examples. So my son is a philosophy student, and when he goes off, I say to him, but tell me examples. Like, I don't get it. So in the dream work, I like to give examples. And what you're talking about the child. When I first came to the dream work 20 years ago, my son was 5.5 years old. My son, the philosophy student, is now 26. And in my first dreams, in that first year of working with Marc in Vermont, he came right to the edge of the deepest, darkest water you can imagine, which throws me into complete terror just even thinking about it. And he would stand at the end of this dock, and he would dive in my dream. And he was just a little boy, and he didn't know how to swim. And of course, I was in sheer terror. And that sheer terror was exactly what the dream wanted to evoke in me. So it wasn't to get away from that terror. It was for me to learn, to begin to learn, that this terror was actually the absolute sort of gateway to my own soul. So it wasn't about knowing anything except that terror, and that I would be invited, and I couldn't do it at all in the beginning, but just to dive after that child into the water. Years later, many years later, when I had a much more developed relationship with my soul self, I dreamt about being deep in the ocean with a baby girl. And exactly as Marc described, I wanted to take that baby and nurse. I've had 2 children. What do you do with a baby in water? But the baby had a wisdom that I knew was otherworldly, and I knew not to take that baby. And the process from the beginning of stepping off the dock after my small son to becoming that baby, that dream was pivotal in becoming that girl who knew herself, who was radiant and wise. So I just wanted to bring that in. It's a lived experience of the dream. I mean, I know you all dream, and it's really the characters in your dream are the parts of you. And when the child comes, it's an incredible thing, because that child is the you that the dreams are going to take you through to become.
Good. Let me follow up and ask. You mentioned the child going into the water and it was your own child, but a lot of times people see children in different states. I've heard some clients talk about seeing a crippled child or sick child, maybe even a dead child. So could you talk a little bit more about what this indicates to you, or how you work with people who see not healthy children perhaps, but other kinds of children, what that might mean?
Well, I have a very abusive father, and he's still alive and working. I'm from Philly, okay? A lot more hair back there. In my dream, there was a tremendous thunderstorm, and very scary. It reminded me of my father coming down the steps and yelling, and going up the steps and yelling. And I went down to investigate, and there was a dead girl with about 8 years old vial coming out of her chest. And the man, the animist, who we haven't talked much about yet, but you mentioned him in your dream where when you sat down as a student, the teacher came, we call him the animist, the teacher, and a lot more, especially if you're a woman. And he was there, and he was carrying her out, and he asked me to help him, and I took her legs, and took her around her shoulders and chest, carried her out. And that was me, gone at 8. Now, why do children appear damaged or deceased? Because in this life, you experienced tremendous trauma to the degree that the child comes in a dream actually killed or damaged. Now, in dreams, anything dead can come back. So death is not ever final, because there's such a thing as death. And all of us will never die, really. Our psyches live, and in dreams it's the same thing. But the death of the self is something, death becomes a loss of self. And so this part, no matter how hard I worked to do my work, I was always something missing. And even though I became very intelligent, I could always hear the teacher, and I always was obedient to him. I was able to do that without the child, but I could never feel his love, because the child is capable of feeling in a way that an ego, a person, is not. I could feel anger, I could feel shame, I could feel humor, some joy, but I could never feel love. And when I went through the process of becoming that girl, which I did, I wouldn't be here today. I could not be knowing without love and do what he wants from that place. When I became reclaimed with her, I became her, I could feel love. I could feel a lot of things, sexuality, and just a lot of things changed for me. So it requires us to go into very deep places in ourselves where we've been extremely hurt, and that's why children come. Now, sometimes the children they'll just bail out and they'll disappear. So when they come to you, they come healthy. I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't really look at it that way, but there are oftentimes a lot of you out there will have healthy kids. They're just lost. But if you're deeply wounded or traumatized, then there is damage to the child. It's pretty serious.
Thank you, Mark. I just want to comment that in my own work, it turned out the boy was in an orphanage, so that was also a condition that happened. You throw these things out, but the problem is what this actually means goes a lot deeper than we can say. Let me turn to the other side of the equation, which is the opposition, the pathology, the adapted self. We have different names for this. And you touched on it, Mark, a bit in your first statement. But I'd like you to, again, talk about, first of all, what this means to you, and secondly, again, with Christa's help too, how this appears in some people's dreams.